Our Ginger Running live show. Tonight I'm here with Anita Bean. Hi Anita.
Hi, hello.
Anita is a sports nutritionist and she is the author of the Runner's Cookbook, which I keep talking about in a lot of my YouTube videos, and we even did 3 YouTube videos together using recipes from this book. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it. So we're talking to Anita tonight because she has a new book coming out, which she has an advanced copy that she can hold up just now. Do you want to show us?
Is that fitting in the screen? It'll be the wrong way around, actually, won't it? It's a mirror image. But anyway, it is called Vegetarian Meals in 30 Minutes, More Than 100 Delicious Recipes for Fitness.
Fantastic. That is great. Thank you for holding that up. And we'll be talking about that about halfway through, so stay with us. And I've got loads of questions from Wild Ginger Running patrons who are the loyal supporters of this channel. So we've got loads of questions from people. Loads of people are saying hi on the live chat. Hi to everybody. But I'm just going to start off with a really easy question for you, Anita. Why is nutrition so important for runners?
Nutrition is crucial for runners because it's not only fuels your body properly for your running and for your performance, but it also will help promote recovery. And the fact is that if you don't fuel your body properly, so if you're having the wrong nutrients, the wrong combination of foods, in other words, you're recovering with crisps and junk foods, then you certainly won't be able to get the fitness gains, the running gains and the performance gains that you're looking for. So instead of getting fitter and faster, you could well end up getting slower and feeling more sluggish, more fatigued, and then really failing to meet your fitness goals. So on the other hand, obviously, if you are eating the right foods, then you'll be able to get the fitness gains, you'll be able to get faster as a runner, you'll be able to get stronger. So fuel really is number one when it comes to achieving the fitness goals that you're after.
That is a very fascinating and scary answer, because I went on an 8-mile run yesterday, and afterwards I bought a bag of crisps, a bag of Haribo's, a bag of M&Ms.
I was watching you.
I proceeded to eat half of all of them.
Put it into context, actually. I'm not saying that these foods are always bad. Every food has got a place in a runner's diet, but it's what you do consistently on a day after day after day basis. So certainly having the occasional bag of crisps, the occasional bag of Haribo's won't do you any harm at all, provided you don't overdo it and provided that doesn't constitute the majority of your food intake. So it's really all about quantity and about context as well. So fear not, you will be okay.
Yeah, I don't often do that, but I think I was craving some salt. Good. And then I went to the till. In my defence, I went to the till and I had to pay more than £3. I only wanted a bag of crisps, but I only had a credit card with me because I was just running. So I had to then go and pick up some other things. So I thought, M&Ms would be good, and Haribo's for later, for a future run. And then I just cracked open the packet anyway.
That's why you do not need to make excuses to me.
Oh, thank you very much, Anita. I'm going to read out some, everybody's saying hi on the live chat now, so I'm just going to read out a few people who are here so you can get a little bit of a sense of who's with us tonight. So we've got John Gardner all the way from America. We've got Greatorex, one of my top patrons. Lovely to see you here, Guy. We've got Tom Avery, he's all the way from America as well. Oh, loads of Americans here tonight. Conrad says, greetings from Michigan. Hello, Anita, Claire, and all. Tom Avery is already asking questions. He wants some recipes for veg. So that's great. We'll get onto that later. Then we've got a Nigel Barnett saying hello to everyone. Oh, Graham Howes says good evening from South Africa. So hello.
Amazing.
Yeah, a global audience that we have here. Stephen Mackay says the new book looks good. Yvonne Dufresne says hello, Anita and Claire from Quebec in Canada. And Purple Running Wales, obviously from Wales, says hello everyone, I am trying to watch and cook my dinner at the same time. Who says men can't multitask? So that is absolutely fantastic. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And yeah, especially
absolutely,
yeah, as this is a bit of a new time for us, 6:30 I usually do 8:30, but I'm changing it to 6:30 because it seems to be easier for a lot of people that I interview, and it also makes it less of a late night for me. So yeah, thanks very much for joining us, Anita, and everyone is really excited to hear the answers to all their questions.
Well, thank you for having me.
No problems. I've got just a couple more questions before I crack on with the patron questions. But I'm really interested to know, seeing as you have this new book out now, and it's coming out on the 26th of December, have you got a favourite recipe from the book, which would be great for after a run in winter when it's really cold?
I have got many recipes that would be great for after running winter. Probably my favourite, I've got a few favourites. So black bean and sweet potato curry is one of my sort of mainstays. I probably have that about once a week at the moment. I have got recipes for a few dals, which are sort of spiced lentil stews in my book. So they're really warming. They've got all the protein in, because actually I like to combine more than one protein source in my recipes. Being vegetarian, it's really important you get the right amount of protein after your runs. So something like a dal, I've got red lentil, chickpea, cauliflower dal, and I serve that with cashew nuts and plain yogurt. So you've got lots and lots of protein in there, but you've also got plenty of other healthy macronutrients, micronutrients. So we're talking about, lots of fibre, lots of polyphenols and phytonutrients. So that really will aid your muscle recovery after your run. So every recipe in my book, it really is designed for promoting maximum recovery, and it's not just about the protein, not just about the carbs, but really looking at the whole picture to make sure that you're getting all the healthy fibre, all the vitamins, minerals, the iron. All these things are really, really crucial for runners. So I think that really is what makes my book a little bit different from most of the other cookbooks out there.
Yeah, it's nice to know that we're in safe hands with all your recipes, both in the runner's cookbook here and in the new one, that we know they're going to be doing us a load of good after our running. So much appreciated. Thank you. And so just before I move on to the patron questions, I've got one last question. And this is not about food, it's about hydration, because it's winter now and but is it still important to drink during winter runs? I mean, surely you don't need to drink as much. What's the deal there with hydration in winter?
Okay, so it's not just hot in winter, but you are still going to be sweating. You're going to be wearing layers. So whether you're wearing 1 or 2 or 3 layers, you still will be producing sweat. But the only thing is, when you're outside out running, you are less likely to experience the thirst sensation in the same way as you do in hotter weather. So you might not get that, the same urge, or if you like, the appropriate level of urge to drink. So you do need to still pay attention to your thirst sensation and to your hydration. And the general rule still applies summer and winter, and that is to listen to your body, listen to thirst, and to drink in response to thirst. So I don't encourage over drinking, I don't encourage under drinking. We're trying to find that zone in between to make sure that you're getting the right level of hydration without any of the negative health consequences associated with dehydration or overhydration, and that can actually happen with long distance runs and races. So I suppose, to put it in a nutshell, when you're out running in winter weather, if you're running for less than an hour, you probably don't need to worry too much. You probably don't even need to take water with you. But if you're going longer than an hour, then really be quite mindful, listen to your body, and you will need to drink little and often once you're going over an hour, because your sweat losses will still be occurring, but probably less so than you would in hotter and humid weather.
That's really good advice. So little and often, we'll be taking a water bottle with us over an hour there. Really good. Thank you. Okay. So the first patron question we've got here is it's from a super fan of yours. So Kate Shepard says she loves you. She met you at the London Marathon Expo. And
hello.
She thinks you're really knowledgeable, obviously. And she's a big fan. She's got all your books. So she's got a question. It's quite involved here. It's about intermittent fasting. So she says she often does a run in the early morning of about 4 to 5 miles with no food, and then 2 or 3 days a week she also cycles 20 miles to work on just coffee, and then she'll have a protein shake afterwards as she wants to recover ASAP. So she's interested in intermittent fasting, which is not eating from 7 p.m. to 10:30 a.m., for example. But that would mean that she wouldn't be able to eat anything until 3 hours after that commute, run or ride. So she's just wondering if that's a good idea, because she'd miss out on refueling just after those sessions in that sweet spot, and it might hamper the recovery.
Okay, so it's fair to say that this idea of intermittent fasting, we sometimes call it time-restricted eating, time-restricted feeding. It has become quite a fashionable way of eating. Now, I have looked into this in a lot of detail. I've recently written up an article for a national magazine on the topic. Now, what the research, I suppose, I'm just trying to summarise this actually as briefly as possible. The research seems to suggest that the main benefits associated with this type of eating, where you are basically fasting for about 12 to 14 hours, so you'd essentially choose the hours that suit your particular timescale. The main advantages would really relate more to blood sugar control and possibly lowering the risk of type 2 diabetes. It's not really clear that there are any sports performance benefits associated with this, and I think for people who don't exercise, and perhaps those who lean more towards the couch potato lifestyle, I think that yes, there are benefits. Possibly in terms of weight management, when you look at the research that shows that it can help people to avoid evening snacking. So if you like, people will tend to lose body fat and lose weight, but it's more an accidental side effect, the fact that they are just restricting their eating window to a relatively short time. So basically you're cutting out snacking in front of TV, and when people do tend to overeat perhaps in the evenings. But when it comes to athletes and runners, then there doesn't appear to be any strong benefits, mainly because runners need to make sure that they are fueling themselves at the correct times. So what you can do, if you like to train first thing in the morning, and I think it's fine if you're doing relatively short workouts, so for an hour or less, then that's fine to do that on an empty stomach if that suits you best, not because you think you're going to get any magical side effect in terms of losing body fat or performance, but if it makes you feel more comfortable and it allows you to get through your workout with less gut problems, then I think that's absolutely fine, that if that suits you. But there really are no hard and fast rules when it comes to eating before or after exercise. So going back to the point with Kate, I think it's okay, carry on with your morning runs, your morning cycles. You can do that on empty without any detrimental effect, provided you've fueled up correctly the night before. But I suppose when I have worked with athletes who have been trying to do this, and when it comes to imposing extra rules in an already rather complicated landscape of nutrition, I think you should keep things as simple as possible. So if a 12-hour fast suits you, and that I think that's quite normal, so it's like 8 till 8, so you'd have your meal in the evening at 8 o'clock, and then you'd be having breakfast at 8 o'clock the next morning. That's quite a doable thing. It's literally just cutting out evening snacking. So I don't want to overcomplicate matters, and I don't think we should get too hung up on timings, because there really isn't the robust scientific evidence to support a very narrow feeding window that's significantly less than 12 hours at the moment. It's just, the science just isn't quite there yet when it comes to athletic performance.
So do you think she should just have a protein shake after she gets to work then, and not
she can have
wait 3 hours?
Yeah, absolutely. She can eat when she gets to work. It doesn't need to be a protein shake unless you particularly want that. You can, a balanced combination of carbs and protein is generally the best way to go after any run or any cycle ride.
Fantastic. And we had a comment from Michael. She says she could just maybe move her window to eat earlier in the evening, and then she'd be eating earlier once she got to work. But 7 p.m. till 10:30 a.m. is quite That's a big, quite a long time, isn't it?
So that's
you
really
have to
narrow
eat really
eating.
early.
That's a narrow eating window. And quite honestly, when I looked at all the research on, there's not that much research on humans. Actually, it's really important that people remember this. It's a new thing. We've got a lot of studies on rats and mice and fruit flies, but we don't have many on humans. And so far, sort of the strong evidence points to there may be benefits in terms of blood sugar control for a 12-hour window. All right, so we don't know what the optimal window is, when the optimal window is. I mean, I've spoken to the researchers at the University of Surrey who've carried out some excellent pilot studies, and they said that there is no certainty as the optimal window at the moment. And what I'm trying to say is, please don't overcomplicate your life when you don't need to.
Yeah, fantastic answer.
It's those crisps and those Haribos that you need to worry about first.
I'm
not looking at anyone in particular.
Oh no! Next time I do that, I'm gonna be thinking of you. Yeah. And Kate Shepherd is actually here watching on the live chat tonight, and she says, "Thank you so much. This has been so helpful." So
excellent.
Thank you.
Pleased to help.
Fantastic. So the next question that we have for you, is about the total opposite. It's about overeating. Right. Oh, where's that one gone? Let me just get that. Right, where are you? Move you out of the way. Overeating. Here we go. So Robert Jordan would like some tips on stopping runners overeating just because their mind says they're hungry. I know that I've been chatting to Rob a bit, and he said he sometimes skips breakfast and then he does his run, and then he's so hungry when he comes back that he eats like everything. So I've told him to eat breakfast, just a small breakfast. But yeah, he just wants some tips on stopping overeating because his mind says he's hungry.
First and foremost, before we go any further, if you are hungry, that is your body's natural way of telling you that you need to eat. Okay, it's a response. Hunger is a natural response to your appetite. So please don't deny it, because by denying your hunger, then you will risk underfueling yourself, and then you'll risk feeling overly hungry later on, and then you'll end up overeating. So please don't ignore your natural body's hunger signals. Are you after weight loss? Well, if you are, then again, the best thing to do is to listen to your appetite. If you really are quite concerned perhaps about the quantities that you need to eat following a run, then I would strongly recommend that you simply schedule your runs so that it coincides with a normal mealtime afterwards. So, for example, a lot of runners will do their workout first in the morning. That's what I like to do as well. And try and time that so that you would say you normally have breakfast at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. Make sure that your run will then end then, so you don't feel that you've either then got to deny your hunger to wait for your next meal, or that you're so hungry that you end up buying a bag of Haribos, and I'm not looking at anyone in particular, but you will end up having an extra snack or extra food on top of your regular meals. So it's a case really of just getting the timing right, and then afterwards, if you feel hungry, yes, respond to your appetite and have the right kind of foods, and we can go into that in just a moment. We can talk about that. If you are concerned that you are perhaps overeating at meal times, the best advice that I can give, again, I'm putting this into one sentence, is to keep the fibre content of your meals high. So lots of vegetables, lots of plant foods that will have a naturally satiating effect. So your appetite will be more readily satisfied. The food is more bulky, it's more satisfying. And a lot of people do find that is just an easier way to control their appetite, particularly those who are wishing to not gain weight or possibly even to drop a few pounds.
Yeah, so lots of vegetables and sweet potatoes and like roasted vegetables, Mediterranean vegetables. Like get in the veg aisle in Morrison's and get it all in your trolley, batch cook it, have it in like handy portions so you can just get it after a run.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's another really good tip actually, is to plan what you're going to eat before your run. So when you come back, you're starving. You don't just immediately raid the fridge or you immediately dive into a cafe or a fast food outlet and start eating all the wrong things. So it's being organised and planning, so you've got your food already. That would be the ideal situation. And I'm a strong believer, like you, of batch cooking. So you cook 2 or 3 meals worth in advance, you keep the rest in the fridge, and then you've got a ready meal already there after your runs, and you're not again sort of scrabbling around the kitchen, munching biscuits whilst you're trying to cook something. I know what it's like.
yeah, we all know what that's like, don't we? We've just had a comment come in on the live chat from John Gardner here, who says, sometimes I don't feel hungry in the morning, so occasionally I go all the way from 8 p.m. At night, so dinner, until noon the next day. So yeah, he's just saying that as a comment, but is that good nutritionally? I mean, I do that sometimes as well. I don't often get hungry until about 11:30 in the morning, especially if I've had a decent meal the night before.
Yeah, in fact, that therein lies your answer. So if you have had a fairly big meal the day before, then it means that you've obviously satisfied your hunger, you've refueled your body automatically. I'm not saying that necessarily is the best thing to do, but if it does actually suit a lot of runners. If you want to do a long run or an intense run, say you're doing intervals or something quite high intensity first thing in the morning, but you know that you don't want to be eating straight before that run, then make sure you're really well fueled up the day before. But of course, the knock-on effect will be that you might not have an appetite. So although I'm a great believer in always listening to your body, always following your appetite, so I would just say that, in the mornings, if you're not feeling hungry, then don't force yourself to eat when you don't want to. But on the other hand, make sure that you're not overeating and having a gigantic meal the night before, and obviously that can disrupt sleep. And then that might explain why you're not terribly hungry the next day. But nowadays, we know that having, there's nothing set in stone when it comes to breakfast. Some people like to eat breakfast at 7 or 8 o'clock. Others just naturally don't get hungry until late morning. The evidence, we're looking at the studies, and they show that generally skipping breakfast doesn't have any advantages really when it comes to weight loss, because then people might just eat more during the rest of the day. So it's not something that we'd necessarily advocate. But on the other hand, the latest research from Bath University, it's called the Bath Breakfast Project, actually shows that breakfast eaters, they then actually expend more energy through day-to-day activity and through exercise, so physical activity later on in the day. So although their total energy intake over the day might be a little bit more because they've consumed breakfast, but they actually expend more energy, and there's certainly no evidence that they then gain weight or that they're heavier than the breakfast skippers. So if anything, I think for an athletic lifestyle, for a running lifestyle, it is a good idea to consume breakfast. But my advice is definitely to eat breakfast when you're hungry for it and when it fits into your day. You don't need to be eating like first thing the moment that you get out of bed. Yeah,
that's really good advice. Thank you for that. That's really, really interesting. All about the latest breakfast studies. It's great to know that you've got all this new research. And then just in a sort of a similar vein, another question on the live chat from Guy Greatorex. He says, if you drink lots of water before you eat, will that help you fill up so that you eat less?
That's quite traditional slimming advice back from the 70s and 80s, actually, and 90s. I remember that well. It doesn't really work, not long term. It might work now and then. It might have a short-term acute effect. It might make you eat perhaps a little bit less, but I just think it's an unnecessary rule, and I don't like rules, and I don't like people sort of imposing things and overriding their natural appetite cues. So no, just eat when you're hungry.
Yeah, and stop eating when you're not hungry. I think that's the thing that gets most people. It definitely gets me. Is like, I like the taste of food, and so I like a big portion. I like to feel satisfied, and often, even if there's like a small bit left on my plate, I'll be like, oh, I've been taught not to eat, not to waste food, you have to finish what's on your plate, and I will just to me, a finished meal is everything gone rather than me feeling full, and that's probably where I fall down. Because I use the it's gone rule rather than I'm full rule.
Yeah, I mean, we want to get the balance right. I don't want necessarily to encourage people. When you go to a restaurant, you're given a gigantic mountain of pasta as a portion. Well, the ideal situation is that you eat slowly, in that way that you can listen to your appetite a little bit better. You don't need to feel that you've got to finish off that great big mountain of pasta that's on your plate. So if you can work out when you are truly full, truly less hungry, and then stop eating at that point. So it's a case of getting that natural stop mechanism right. But on the other hand, I don't like people to be restricting their food intake and denying themselves hunger. And especially if you're a runner, you don't want to be underfueling yourself. That really is key.
Yeah, it's all psychological with me. I know exactly when I am full, but then if there's still some food on the plate or I'm enjoying the taste, I'll continue to eat until I'm really full.
Yeah, I mean that's key. It's really simple. We need to enjoy our food. We don't eat simply to fuel our bodies. We do need to eat for enjoyment as well.
Yeah, and we've got some more. The live chat is like really, really active tonight. It's really good. People are really enjoying your answers. Guy says, great answer, thank you. And then James Frost says that he avoids eating a lot in the evening, and he tends to kind of taper the amount he eats in the evening. And then in response to that, John Gardner says, have you got any hints? Because for him, evening snacking is a weakness. And Tom Avery agrees with him as well. So yeah, are there any hints you've got for stopping snacking in the evening after you've already eaten? Maybe you're watching telly like this now.
Okay, I think if you really, really do like snacking, nothing wrong with that. So try and have the right kind of snacks. So things that really will fill you up and satisfy your appetite at the same time. So, I mean, fruit is a really obvious example. I would say fruit, nuts, anything based on oats is really good. That's more filling. The second piece of advice I would have would be to make sure that your supper is filling, so that will satisfy your appetite and reduce your urge to keep on snacking. So whether that's out of sort of semi-hunger or out of boredom. So the golden rules are to include lots of fibre. So we're talking about lovely foods like beans and chickpeas and lentils, lots of vegetables. And you will find that if you are more naturally full after your evening meal, that urge to keep on snacking and nibbling throughout the evening will hopefully reduce. I'm just trying to think sort of examples of snacks that I would have in the evening, because I know what it's like when perhaps you're bored, you're watching telly and you feel like you want to do something. So maybe something like I would probably have something like cheese and crackers, or I mean, that actually doesn't sound very low calorie, does it? I mean, we can have probably one of my favourite snacks would be carrot sticks with perhaps some hummus, or I make my own guacamole. I just smash up some avocado and stir in with salt, pepper, lemon juice, and a few chili flakes. And the beauty of that actually is that it takes a long time to eat, because you've got lots of raw vegetables. It could be carrots, it could be any other raw veg you like. Putting that into a dip, so you've got loads and loads of really good nutrition in there. Plus, it's kind of satisfying your urge to want to do something whilst you're watching the telly at the same time, but it is actually doing you good. It's not loading up too many calories, and you've got the right things.
I use popcorn as well. Is that a good thing to use? You can
that's good, because it is quite filling. Yeah, it's quite filling. You've got fibre in there. If it's the whole grain popcorn, that is really good for you. It takes a long time to eat, so you've got to get through quite a large volume of popcorn before you feel full.
But it's kind of good for that whole snacking thing, because you're like, I'm snacking, and it's not too, it's better than chocolate.
Exactly. And the final thing I would say on that is just don't feel guilty about the food that you're eating, because that really will foster an unhealthy relationship with food. And that's something that I do see all too much in, particularly endurance runners.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I don't feel guilty at all about the packet of crisps, the Haribos and the M&Ms that I ate yesterday.
You don't. No, good. And I'm very pleased to hear that.
I don't, because I didn't eat them today. So I had the Haribo. They were there all day. And then Steve came in and he took them. And I was like, take them away from me. I do not need to eat any more of those.
But yeah, that just shows that you have got the balance right, Claire, because, you shouldn't feel guilty about something, but it means that you're not having it every day. It's not like you then feel that you really must have certain foods, you must be snacking all the time. It's really just, if you fancy foods, you should be able to eat it in the right sort of quantities without beating yourself up about it.
Yeah, there's no point because it's already eaten. So,
right.
Yeah. I'd like to just get to know your book a little bit more now. And we've got a few questions about sort of like the difference between veggie diets, vegan diets, and meat diets, and a little bit about the vitamin B12 as well. Should we start with the first question, and then you can maybe you draw on your book and show us a bit from it in order to answer. So John Moisey here says he's curious to hear your opinions on plant-based, so like basically vegan, versus veggie versus meat-based diets. Have you seen any clear markers that indicate a better recovery rate from one of those diets particularly? And is one of them better for runners or different types of runners, like sprinters versus ultra runners?
Okay, there are lots of questions.
Yeah.
So
just let me know if you want me to.
If I can just sort of explain the difference between these types of diets. So when we say the word plant-based, that really can mean anything. It's almost an umbrella term for anything from strict vegan, where you avoid all animal products. It can mean vegetarian, where you just avoid meat and fish, or it can simply, plant-based can simply mean that you are focusing more on plants. You're eating, lots of veg, lots of beans and lentils and pulses and so on, and whole grains, but you are including small amounts of meat and fish. So there is no universally accepted definition of plant-based. So when it comes to performance benefits of vegetarian and vegan diets, now I have looked at the research. There isn't a huge amount out there with athletes, but perhaps the most comprehensive roundup of all the research, it was a meta-analysis of 8 different studies that was conducted by Australian researchers in 2016. And what they found was that there was no disadvantage when it comes to performance of a vegetarian or a vegan diet. So in other words, they compared the performance and the health of meat eaters with vegetarians and vegans, and they found actually there was no difference. So in other words, it will do you no harm having a well-planned vegetarian diet when it comes to performance. Now, the next question is, will a vegetarian or vegan diet actually enhance performance? And that really is the golden question, what people really want to know. So again, I've looked at the science, and perhaps the best study that I've come across was conducted at the University of Arizona. Again, this was in 2017. And again, they looked at the aerobic fitness and the strength of vegetarians versus meat eaters. Again, there was no difference, but actually amongst the female athletes, there was a small improvement in their endurance compared to the meat eaters. Now, we're not sure exactly why that is. It might just be that they had better balance of the right sort of carbohydrates in their diet. So I don't think that the science is yet there to say that categorically plant-based is going to be better, but there is plenty of anecdotal evidence. We all know about that, particularly amongst runners. And we've now got lots of high-profile athletes. So I'm thinking of people even like Lewis Hamilton, Tom Daley, Serena Williams. They are now expanding. We've got boxers, we've got bodybuilders. I mean, think of David Hay. We've got there's even bodybuilders, but there are plenty of ultra runners. Scott Jurek, for example, who are vegan. So it certainly doesn't do their performance any harm. And we do know that they say that they have more energy. They say that they recover more effectively. But the truth is probably what's happening is that they've switched from a fairly junk food and a diet that's based perhaps on quite a lot of refined foods. And then when you switch to plant-based or a vegan diet, then you are going to be consuming more fibre, more phytonutrients, you're going to be having more unsaturated fats and less saturated fats. So the whole composition of the diet tends to change. So you are benefiting your gut health. And we know that a healthy gut microbiome will affect many parameters, many biomarkers of your performance and recovery. There'll be less inflammation in the body. We know also that that carries with it a lot of improvements in health, so a lower risk of type 2 diabetes, of certain cancers, of heart disease and stroke. And so we know also that there is perhaps a lower risk of injury and faster recovery when you've got less inflammation in the body. So that's probably why a plant-based diet does suit many athletes. But I will say at this point, there is a big but, provided you get it right. And not every runner is getting it right. And the biggest mistake that I find is that people go vegan, they cut out meat, but they don't substitute the right foods. You do need to make sure that you are getting enough protein. So for runners and other athletes, they need to get that 20 to 25 grams of protein per meal, and also after their training session or after their event. And if you're just having a spoonful of hummus, for example, well, that's not going to cut it. You need to get a lot more protein than that to get your 20 or 25 grams. So certainly of the recipes in my book, I will make sure that they usually combine more than one plant source. So that's actually the other thing. It's better that you get more than one plant protein source in each meal. So we're talking about the beans, the lentils, we're talking about nuts and seeds, we're talking about whole grains, and also dairy. So my book is on vegetarian diets, not vegan. Not all the recipes are vegan, some of them are. So dairy products will suit vegetarians. So the ideal situation is that you're getting enough protein and that you're substituting the right foods, and ideally getting 2 or 3 protein sources in each of your meals, and that will ensure that you're getting sufficient nutrients, you're not getting nutrient deficiencies. So that is something that you've really got to watch out for if you're a vegetarian or a vegan runner, that you're avoiding all of those deficiencies.
Yeah, exactly. And your book would be really helpful for anybody wanting to explore vegetarian and vegan diets, I'm sure. So on the vegetarian recipes, have you also put sort of vegan options? Like, that's really handy.
Around about 80 or 90% of the recipes are either vegan or can easily be made vegan, and I explain for each recipes what is suitable substitutions for vegan ingredients, and each recipe I will highlight the nutritional benefits. Each recipe really has been developed very much with a fitness and performance focus to make sure that that every recipe is providing you with the right balance of nutrients that you need to fuel your body properly and to promote recovery.
Brilliant. It does sound really good. I can't wait to get my hands on it myself, because I've tried the whole going vegan thing and I didn't do it right, because I just cut out meat and I didn't bother like replacing it with anything. So I actually felt weaker. But that's my own silly fault.
That really is the most common problem that I come across when people don't make the right substitutions.
Yeah.
And how did you feel, when you felt it wasn't working? How did you know it wasn't working?
I just didn't feel as energetic, and I felt just tired. I started to get injured a bit. Just didn't feel right. So I've put fish back in as well. So I know it's not just protein, is it? There's I've got a question here about B12 as well. Nigel Barnett says he's B12 deficient anyway. He doesn't say what diet he's on, and he has to have injections every 12 weeks. So I just wondered if you have any food advice for when he gets tired and he needs to have foods rich in vitamin B12.
Yeah, so if you're vegetarian, you're getting your B12 from dairy products and eggs as well. But if you are vegan and not consuming any of those foods, then you need to get B12 from a food that has been fortified with B12. So that can be a plant. So a lot of the plant milks now, certainly the branded plant milks, they are fortified with B12 as well as other nutrients to bring the levels up to a similar level as cow's milk. There are other fortified foods, so certain soya products will be fortified in yeast extracts and certain breakfast cereals. But I think really, as to really be sure about getting your B12, it's better to take a vitamin supplement. Now you can get that from a multivitamin, so just check the B12 content does supply at least the RDA. And I think that probably is the best thing to do. So it was John we're talking about, was it?
Nigel this time.
Nigel, yeah. I do apologise. So if Nigel has had a diagnosed deficiency and he's been advised to take supplementation through his routes, then he needs to follow his doctor's advice on that one, definitely.
Yeah. That's brilliant advice. Thank you. And then we do have a question about... this is a really interesting question, I thought, about the carnivore movement, which I haven't actually heard of. So Rob Manning wants to know, what are Anita's thoughts on the carnivore movement with the improvement in insulin management? And then he has another question, which I can repeat if you don't remember this, but it's also what does Anita think on recovery rates with zero carbs and increased protein consumption?
Oh, right. Okay. So yes, the carnivore diet, that I know it's really, really big in the US, certainly bigger in the US than it is in the UK.
I've never heard it before. I have no idea what it was.
Stay in your blissful ignorance, please, because the carnivore diet, as the name implies, means that you are consuming meat and virtually nothing else.
That sounds crazy. Humans aren't meant to do that.
Yeah, so it is not based on any science at all.
Did Donald Trump make it up?
Yeah, it's not far off, actually.
Is it fake news?
It is fake news. It was started by, I believe, the daughter of the psychology guy Patterson.
I thought you were going to say the daughter of a butcher who was failing.
No, well, almost. But anyway, she was suffering for various chronic illnesses and tried lots and lots of different things. So self-experimentation, zero nutrition training and zero nutrition qualifications, and then she found that by cutting out all foods apart from meat made her feel better. So bizarre as it may sound, this trend seems to have caught on, and it is spread largely by social media. It's really evidenced purely by anecdotes and by nothing scientific. So logic will tell you that whilst you might be getting lots of protein and barely any carbs, but it really does not suit an athlete's lifestyle at all, because you do need at least some carbohydrate if you're going to be fueling hard workouts or long workouts. But the second really important thing is that on a meat-only diet, you're not going to be getting any fibre. So your gut microbiome will change really quite rapidly. And although you might not experience an immediate effect, but certainly in the long term, you will notice an effect really on many aspects of your health, because we know that having a healthy gut microbiome, so this refers to all the trillions of microbes that live in the large intestine, they make chemicals that are called short chain fatty acids, and they affect numerous aspects of your health. They affect your mental health, your cardiovascular health, and they affect athletic performance and recovery. So having sort of an imbalance in, and they also affect metabolism and obesity, I should say that. So by having an imbalance of these gut microbes, that certainly will have a detrimental effect on your recovery after training, and it will have a detrimental effect in terms of inflammation after training as well. But suffice to say, there really is no scientific evidence to support a carnivore diet, either for health or for athletic performance.
Fantastic. A good answer there. We're not cats, are we? We don't just eat cat food.
My cat does.
Yeah.
And that's a very good summary.
Yeah,
Thank you, Claire.
Where would we get our vitamin C from? All the minerals, the vitamins. It just sounds completely crazy. So I hope that answers Rob Manning's questions there. And he says also he asks about recovery rates with 0 carbs. And I said to him, I think you need a bit of carbs as well as protein for recovery. So yeah, just what's your expert opinion on that?
Okay, so I know very low carbohydrate diets have become again quite popular, more so in the States than here in the UK. And again, there is some scientific evidence looking at the periodization of carbohydrates around training sessions. So it can work. Perhaps if I just rewind a little bit, so the whole purpose of going low carb is to encourage the muscles to use more fat and less carbohydrates. The advantage there is that you can then tap into your body's larger stores of fat, and we know that we've got very limited stores of carbohydrate or glycogen. So if you can sort of shift the balance slightly, that the theory is that can suit endurance performance and perhaps improve your performance, because then you'll be able to eke out your valuable fuel stores and keep going for longer. So training on a low carbohydrate diet might suit very low intensity performance, so sort of those very long, slow runs. However, when the scientists, and I'm thinking now of the team in Australia, the Australian Institute of Sport, when they have looked at low carb diets and periodized low carb diets compared to regular diets, they have found that there is actually no performance advantage. So although we do see differences when it comes to the genetic expression at a cellular level, in other words, we see that there's an expression of genes that will that really encourage fat burning, and also what's called mitochondrial biogenesis. That means you make more mitochondria, so that would be advantageous. So we do see cellular changes, but we don't actually see performance benefits, and that's really key. At the end of the day, what you're looking for is the health and performance. There doesn't seem to be an advantage in following a very low carbohydrate diet, certainly not on a chronic basis. If you want to get in your fast runs, your intervals, your hill runs and so on, then you do need to have carbohydrate if you want to perform to your maximum and get the maximum training benefits.
So carbs are still king. We can still eat carbs.
Absolutely, and certainly when it comes to race day performance, certainly when it comes to hills, certainly when it comes to anything that's high intensity.
That's fantastic. It's good to know, because I love a piece of toast with honey on it.
Yes.
So we've kept you for quite a while, Anita. Have you got time just to answer 3 more questions?
Of course I have.
Everybody is very thankful on the live chat. It comes across that you know exactly what you're talking about, backed up by all the latest scientific studies. So people are going a bit mad for live questions here, which is absolutely fantastic. I've got the last prior question to get done from John Gardner. He wants to know what your thoughts are about what are the most important things to do when planning food and drink for a long, 10-hour race?
Okay, firstly, you need to have a race plan. So test everything out in training. Don't leave anything to chance. So in all of your training runs, just try out different foods, work out what works for you, because when it comes to races, it's a really, really individual thing. So when you've got a good idea of the kind of foods that you like, that you know will agree with your gut, and you know that it won't make you feel nauseous or sort of trigger anything during the race, then the idea really is to ensure that you eat food little and often. And then for a 10-hour race, that's an awful lot of food. So generally you want to be eating roughly once every 30 to 60 minutes, but you might be constrained by the particular type of race. Next thing you want to do is obviously to check out where the checkpoints are on your race. So do a little bit of research, if you can, try and find out what's provided. But on the other hand, as I'm sure you know, Claire, you shouldn't always rely on them, because you could get to a checkpoint and then find out that the food actually isn't there after all. So take your own supplies. So the kind of foods that a lot of ultra runners would like to take with them would be small sandwiches. So things that are non-perishable would be the order of the day. So things like peanut butter sandwiches, or perhaps cheese will usually last quite well. And I would say take a mixture of sweet and savoury. So don't just have pure sweet things, because then your palate after 10 hours will become really jaded. So take savoury, like peanut butter sandwiches, some little cubes of cheese and nuts as well, to give you the savoury hit. But you will need the carbs as well. So take some flapjacks, some oat bars. Fruit and nut bars are really, really good. There are so many different varieties out there. I like to make my own, and I know a lot of runners will like to make their own fruit and nut bars. And I have actually got lots and lots of recipes for healthy snacks in here. I thought I'd get a Cookbook plug in there, but
definitely.
Rice cakes. Rice cakes are really good. You can buy rice cake, the crispy kind of rice cakes, which are the plain kind. But I actually like to make my own rice cakes, so that I've got recipes in my book, and there are lots of different variations. So for all of my recipes, I will give you at least 3, 4 or 5 different variations on the theme. So with rice cakes, if you're making your own, it's a bit like making solid rice pudding. You then cook. It's like risotto rice. You cook it up with milk, and then you either with milk or water, I should say, and then you stir in a little bit of cream cheese, and then you put it into a tin. It will set, and you cut it into little squares or cubes, whatever shapes you want. But you can flavour it with cinnamon, you can flavour it with vanilla. Some people like to put jam in between. So there are lots of different ways of doing it. You've got lots of options available for you. So the main thing is to take a good variety of foods that you know won't upset your gut, savoury and sweet.
Yum, those rice cakes sound amazing. I can't wait to get the book. I'm really excited about it.
Well, we'll have to make, when you next come to my house, we'll make that one together. We made the energy balls last time, didn't we?
We did, yeah. And it's had a lot of views, that video. And I will link to all 3 of the nutrition videos that me and Anita did together at her home in the description below the video here. So you won't miss out on those ones. You can make some fantastic meals and a lovely healthy dessert. So just 2 more questions if you've got time. Guy Greatorex, just keeping in that race theme there. Guy Greatorex wants to know your opinion on energy drinks. Yes. What's your opinion on energy drinks for these trail races and ultra races? Yeah.
So if you are going to be running for longer than about 2 hours, they are a convenient way of getting in the carbs. So you're combining fluid and carbohydrate. Make sure you try them out beforehand. So an energy drink that supplies at least 6 or 7 grams per 100 mils, that's what you're going to be looking for. I personally like to make my own because it's a lot cheaper, then you know exactly what goes in there. So you can just basically mix sugar or squash. In America, I think you call it cordial. So it's the same thing. You dilute that with water. If you are going to be sweating a lot, so if you will be running for, say, 2 or 3 hours plus, you can add a little pinch of salt so you know that you're replacing the sodium that you're losing on that long run. So that's a cheaper way of doing it. You can select the flavour yourself. I don't think you need to spend out a lot of money on these commercial products unless you really want to, or you prefer the convenience of them.
Yeah, I agree. Like, just make it yourself.
Out
of squash and a pinch of salt.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll do nicely. That's fantastic. And then the last question before I read out some very nice things that people have said about you and your answers here is from Kate Shepherd, who you answered the first question about the fasting. Nice. So she's still tuned in, and she says, does the new cookbook have a nutritional breakdown for the recipes?
Yeah, it does. So I'm going to pick a random recipe here. Oh, that was a cake recipe. Okay. So, this is just a random recipe which I shall hold up and prove to you. Okay, so we've got the full nutritional breakdown at the bottom. I'm probably not tilting it. Am I tilting that right?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can vaguely see it without giving everything away there.
So it's got.
You.
I don't know to produce evidence. So it's got calories, protein, carbohydrate, fat, saturated sugar, and fibre for each of the recipes. And I'm not saying that you need to track your macros every day unless you really, really, really want to, but it literally just gives you that reassurance so that you know what you're eating and helps you to just, stay on track, really.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. I can't wait to get hold of it. And several people here on the live chat are saying, "Oh, can't wait to buy the book." So when can we buy the book? Like, where can we find out more? Like, is there a waiting list or anything that I can put in the YouTube description?
You can pre-order right now from Amazon or from Bloomsbury, the publishers. It's actually got a really good discount on Amazon at the moment. It's I think 30 or 35%, something like that. Wow. Not far off from the Bloomsbury website as well, actually. So if you just go onto either of those, it can be pre-ordered and it will be released on the 26th of December. So it's only about a month away. It's not too far to go.
Not too far. And all of your New Year's resolutions, you can just get into healthy eating and be your healthiest, living your best life in 2020 with Anita's book. So I'll get that link from Amazon and I'll put it in the description below so that everybody can easily just click the show more box and it will come up with loads of links. So that is fantastic. So I'm just going to read out some nice comments from everybody before we end the live broadcast, just so that, because you've provided some amazing information, Anita. It's been so good to have you on the live chat, and everybody is massively appreciating your time. You've given us like way more of your time than I said that we would do. So Conrad Anderson says, great information on comparing diets and some of the testing. Thank you. Nigel Barnett, whose question you answered about B12, he said, thanks for that advice. I'm scheduled for my next injection tomorrow, so I'll talk to my doctor. And OO Dorb said, he answered my question as well. Thanks very much. And then John Gardner says, many great tips there. I've got to buy Anita's new book. So I'll be checking up on him and making sure he buys the book. And Mike Haler said, I'm so trying rice cakes. So he's going to have to buy the book too. And Graham House said, well, I've learned quite a bit this evening. Thanks very much, Anita. Excellent. And thanks for the great show. Fantastic. And Purple Running Whales says, amazing interview. I have learned loads. Thanks, Anita. I'll be asking Santa for your new book. So you've got at least 3 people buying the book just from that.
That's a fantastic start. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for answering all the questions.
You're more than welcome.
And is there anything else that you wanted to just finally impart with us, or have we drained you dry of all nutritional knowledge?
Okay, if you want to find out more, if you want to contact me, then follow me. I'm on Instagram, Anita Bean 1, and I'm on Twitter as Anita Bean. My website, anitabean.co.uk, has got loads of free information you can download, lots and lots of articles to try and keep it really topical, and I update with new stuff regularly, and all my contact details are on all of those social media channels. But thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for listening.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And just had another person saying, Nigel Barnett, I will make a point of buying Anita's book. So that is brilliant. And I would buy it if you weren't about to send me one for a quick look. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And have a great evening. That's been fantastic. Thanks, and bye, guys. Thanks for all your great questions.
Thank you.